All right, now it is time for our 2-minute drill where I kind of go back and forth with the boys with quick hits. And the first quick hit I want to talk to you guys about is the offense, because I'm looking at the stats coming into this game. And the Commanders were 22nd in the league against the rush. They also they were 27th in the league in yards per attempt at 4.8. So I'm curious to know why would they not attack that part of it? They started off slow doing what they were doing, which is trying to get the passing game going.
Well, I mean, I knew that's why we talked about in the pregame. I just had a premonition today that this was going to be a day that they were going to try to, throw the ball all over the map. You got a young secondary. You feel confident that you can control the pass rush, even though you've got a defensive line with 5 first-rounders on them, but your offensive line has been holding up pretty well. You've dominated in the running game, and the thought probably, in Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni's mind is that, hey, we've rushed for over 200 yards the last 2 weeks. This team is probably banking on us coming in with a heavy dose of the run. So let's go in the opposite direction. I think sometimes coaching staffs can kind of think themselves, out of what's really right, instead of doing what brought you to the dance. You struggled through weeks 1 and 2. Halfway through week 2, you figured out, okay, let's lean on the run game. You run it 48 times. You rack up 259 yards. You come back the next week, you run it another 40 times, and you rack up another 201 yards. And then you come into this game, you only run the ball 9 times in the whole first half. So I think sometimes, when the analytics get caught up, in game planning, and the statistics of where a team is defensively and offensively, fall into the fray, that coaches have a lot of time to kind of consider and think about what they want to run and how they want to attack a defense. And I think that the Eagles started off on the wrong foot today by not running the football and continuing. Well, they ran it the first series, but after the first series, they kind of got away from running the ball in totality, and I thought that really hurt them. Because they had quite a few drives where they could not convert third downs in the first half. Like I said, they were 2 for 5 on third down conversions in the first half alone.
I think it boiled down to Washington making them respect their defensive prowess up front. And once Washington made them play catch-up, the Eagles' mindset was, we're not going to let this team get too far ahead of us. And they knew, for the most part, no matter how they attacked Washington's defense, they could answer back, and they did. Washington goes down the field, Eagles come back with a 12-play drive, much of it through the air. But Washington took them out of their game plan. I'm surprised that I'm not surprised. I thought it would take at least a half for them to figure out exactly how they wanted to attack with the running game, with the zone blocking and the stretch running. They never quite figured it out. They did get some big runs, but they never quite figured it out from start to finish how to consistently attack this Washington defensive front. And it made them put the ball up in the air. Did you honestly think Washington could outrush the Eagles today?
No.
In any way, shape, or form, 107 or 104?
And they got away from Swift, too. They gave him the ball early, and then they got away from him.
That's a great point. As dominant as DeAndre Swift has been over the last 2 weeks, why are we still trying to sprinkle in, Kenneth Gainwell in some situations? I know that you have to limit the amount of touches that you're going to give DeAndre Swift in a game. You got to preserve him. But, when you're in a game and all the chips are down, you got to put your best players out there in certain situations. We were even talking about D-Gun, you and I, one run, and I said, hey, if that's Swift on that run, trust me, he's probably going to get another 8-9 yards out of that run opposed to, what Kenneth Gainwell got out of it. But, I also believe that the run game, is a commitment. In a day and age and in a league where, everyone's hell-bent on throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game, when you run the football, that's a commitment. You're making that commitment to your offensive line to stick with it, and you're just not going to run it the first time or the first 2 times that you run it and have success. Commitment means you stay with it, until you establish it. Mm-hmm. And I just don't feel like, they were in the mode today, or they felt like they had to stay in the mode today to commit to the run game. And in my opinion, I believe that's why the game was so close.
Let me go down this road here because, back in the day, I loved the Philadelphia 76ers when they had Julius Erving and Maurice Cheeks and Andrew Toney and all those guys. They won the 1980s.
You don't love them now?
I love them still. But this is a long way to make my point. But they used to say back then, the teammates on the Sixers would tell Maurice Cheeks, you have the Doc eye. In other words, we always see Julius Erving open. We wouldn't see as many people open as Julius Erving. Does Jalen Hurts have the A.J. Brown eye?
Yes, he does.
Yes, because we were looking at a play where he had Swift in the
yes.
flat, and he was straight down looking at A.J. Brown.
My Surface Pro is down, D-Gun. Will you tell me how many targets A.J. Brown had today?
Let's see here. A.J. Brown had 13 targets, 9 catches, $175, 2 touchdowns.
So that's 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
Okay? 2 games in a row that A.J. Brown almost had half of the targets. I mean, how many times Jalen Hurts threw the ball today? Probably what?
37.
So 37 times.
Yeah.
37 times last week he threw it, and A.J. Brown got 15 targets. He comes back this week, he throws it 37 more times, and A.J. Brown gets 14 targets. And I'm like, there are certain times where I understand you have the matchup, and I'm pretty sure the plan was to go after the rookie with your number one when you've got him locked up. But there are other guys that are open on the field. There was one time where I saw Jalen Hurts throw a ball contested down the sideline on the 3rd down that they didn't convert, and he had DeAndre Swift in the flat right now to the same side. A.J. Brown was the X to that side, and you had DeAndre Swift that went to the flat with a defensive end running after him. You've got the first down, but he throws the ball down the field to A.J. Brown.
He blocked Swift completely out.
He definitely got the Doc eye.
He's got the A.J. eye. All right, let's look now at their defensive line. Sweat was active today, and BG had a nice play. And again, the middle is pretty stout. Do we have any worries at all, other than how they're covering? Do we have any worries about the personnel that they're stacking in there right now?
Well, I think they're doing a better job, D-Gun, of how they double-team the Eagles, how they double-team the tackles. The first couple of weeks they try to get on the shoulders, of these big defensive tackles, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, and Jalen Carter. They try to get on the outside shoulders. And these guys were getting skinny and getting in between them and still breaking through. What you've seen today was offensive linemen get shoulder to shoulder and cover the entire body, so you didn't see as many of those breakthroughs that you've seen in weeks before. And I think, other deep offenses down the road are going to look at how they played it and implement a similar technique to keep these guys from getting in the backfield and being disruptive. That's fine, though. Because you know what? BG showed up today. Sweat showed up today. Hassan Reddick got his first sack today and was extremely active today. But that's what they need, because if you're gonna squeeze down the middle the way that they squoze it down today to keep those guys in the middle from really pushing the pocket, then those guys on the outside are going to have to win. And when those guys don't win, like Sean Desai has done over the course of the last 4 games, you're going to have to send an extra linebacker here or there. And if you got a young guy like a Sam Howell, you're going to have to bring 6.
I think of the 4 offensive lines the Eagles have faced this year, I think personnel-wise, Washington is the worst offensive line they've faced up to this point. Yet I will say this, I think they played that D-line the best of any offensive line that the Eagles have faced this season up to this point because of what you just said. The way they decided to technique these Eagle tackles, and I said it early in the game, and I'm surprised that they were getting 3-4 yards. They were going right up the middle. I didn't think anybody up to this point could run up the middle on this Eagles defense. They found a small measure of success, which helped them in the passing game, especially on those routes over the middle that Howell was hitting receivers over.
D-Gun, I tell you, last year I watched Jonathan Gannon play primarily a 5-man front because they could not control the run.
Yes.
They ranked 17th in the National Football League against the run. They gave up 121 yards per game. Coming into this game, the Eagles were only giving up 48 yards per game. And I think they gave they gave up something like 150-something today.
Total rushing yards allowed 107.
So 107.
And 2 rushing touchdowns.
Okay, so those averages are going to go up, exponentially just because of what happened today. You saw Sean Desai implement a lot more five-man front today than he normally does. From the middle of the second quarter on, you saw a lot of five-man front. Now, the only problem with the five-man front, if you're not up challenging wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, you're at a deficiency on the back end because you have one less guy in coverage. And they don't run a lot of coverage where they go five-man and drop Nolan Smith or drop Hassan Reddick out in the flat and play cover three behind it. When you see them in five-man, they're in five-man to stop the run, and they're in five-man to get pass rush and get that extra, get one-on-ones across the board. But, listen, those guys in Washington, trust me, they're grown men that play a grown man's game and get paid, king's ransom to do it. And after being embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills last week, I can assure you that a great head coach like Ron Rivera and a great offensive coordinator like Eric Bieniemy challenged everyone on the offensive side of the ball. You are going to play against probably the best defense and best offensive line in the National Football this week. Are you going to allow them to do to you what Buffalo just did to you last week? And if, as a player, you have an iota, an ounce, okay, a smidge of pride about yourself, you're going to come out and fight. And today they came out and fight.
Did. Let's go back to the first drive, in fact. They went 14 plays, 75 yards. And there was one play we were looking at where you were talking about the five-man front as Slay is playing off, and that was an easy slant to McLaurin. And all of a sudden he got some rhythm, and he hits McLaurin, and then Samuel again. And then they get down, and this is an interesting talking point, because there was a first and goal play, and they run Samuel on a jet sweep for the touchdown. And that, if you look at that play, first of all, Nolan Smith was completely out of sorts. I don't even know if he had his head up looking to see where that play was going, and Cunningham didn't follow him either. How does that happen?
Lack of communication. When you're mixing and matching pieces, think about what has happened with them over the last couple of weeks. You've had a number of players in and out, and a lot of youth on the back end as well. That's a lack of communication, because as you watch the play unfold, as soon as you see Samuel get the ball, people are standing around like this. He had clear sailing. Nobody followed him all the way across on motion.
Well, I
can't believe it.
I think it's a combination of things. I think, first of all, that there was, a blown assignment. Because anytime a guy goes across in motion like that, especially in the red zone, your safety should be rock and rolling. One should be going back, the other one should be coming down. The other thing is you got to be communicating on any kind of motion that's coming across the formation, because as the defensive end or the outside backer on that side with Nolan Smith in the five-man front,
right, anytime
you get that guy coming across and you're down in the three-point stance, you should be alerting that guy that the motion is coming to get up out of that three-point stance and stand up in a two-point stance so you can see what's going on. Because he had his head down, the ball was snapped, the tackle blocked down, they pulled the guard, and he ran right to the guard, and McLaurin took the ball, ran right by him like he wasn't even standing there. Now, if you're a veteran, defensive end or rush guy, you got your head up, you see what's going on, you're hearing the conversation that's going on behind you, you're hearing the alert to the motion, okay? And the first thing you're doing is you take a step across the line of scrimmage. You're the contained guy. So you can't ever let a guy get outside you or stretch outside of you. So the first thing you do is take a step up the field. That's the thing that perplexes me about that play, is that how teams have success with it. Because that's a free hit on a guy coming across. You either put him to sleep or you turn him back in to the defense. But that should never happen.
Welcome to Pond Lehocky. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pond Lehocky a call.